Mangwanani Malelepo Vukenjani Klekwas Vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, where we have a packed show bringing you the top stories from across the continent and beyond. In international news, former U.S. President Donald Trump abruptly halts his aggressive tariff rollout, momentarily avoiding a global trade war. In Southern Africa, former DR Congo President Joseph Kabila announces a dramatic political return, while the U.S. retrieves citizens once sentenced to death for a failed coup in Kinshasa. We also bring you protests in Tunisia, election tensions in Gabon, and calls from the African Union to keep reparations talks alive despite rising populism. And don't miss the South Africa Report with Arrie Hougaard as he unpacks the political tension shaking the government of national unity, the rand's continued fall, locals sporting triumphs, and where to find the best sundowner in the Cape. All this plus a focus on gold mining, developments in Namibia, and your latest economic indicators on DSTV 285, GOTV 25, 1up2.com, and Network Media Hub on YouTube. My name is Ashwin Berry. Top stories shortly. Let's get into our top stories. After days of defiance, Donald Trump unexpectedly paused his sweeping tariff plan, momentarily halting a looming global trade war. Just days earlier, his administration had mocked reports of a potential delay, standing firm on what they called reciprocal tariffs targeting dozens of countries, while markets trembled and allies braced for retaliation. The sudden 90-day freeze, announced vaguely on Truth Social and clarified only hours later through scattered press briefings, left global partners scrambling to decipher which nations and sectors were affected. The White House insisted this had always been part of a larger negotiating strategy, with officials claiming that over 75 countries had already reached out in response. Yet critics argued the move was less about strategy and more about pressure from tumbling bond markets, GOP backlash, and public unease over economic instability. While the stock market surged in relief, the underlying message remained mixed. Trump was still moving forward with aggressive 125% tariffs on Chinese goods, escalating tensions with the world's second largest economy. His team rushed to reframe the moment as a calculated pivot rather than a retreat, while Democrats labeled it chaos cloaked in bravado. For now, the reordering of the global trade landscape is on pause, but with Trump's temporary truce set to expire in 90 days, another round of disruption could be just around the corner. Now, in the lead-up to Gabon's 2025 presidential election, former Prime Minister and opposition frontrunner Alain Claude Billy Binze has denounced the candidacy of Brice Oligui Nguema, the military leader who seized power in the 2023 coup that ended the Bongo family's decades-long rule, calling on him and other soldiers to go back to the barracks to preserve democracy. Nze argues that Nguema, who has not formally relinquished his military status and controls key state resources, enjoys an unfair advantage in a race he's widely expected to win, despite earlier promises of a civilian transition, while Nze, distancing himself from his Bongo-era past, leads a new movement, Together for Gabon, and accuses the regime of manipulating the electoral process through state machinery and forced attendance at campaign events. Moving on. Hundreds of Tunisians gathered in the capital yesterday in two separate protests against President Kais Saied's increasingly authoritarian rule, demanding the release of political prisoners and denouncing what they describe as the silencing of opposition voices, as 6 prominent jailed politicians launched a hunger strike in protest of what they called an unfair trial. The rallies, led by supporters of the Free Constitutional Party and the Salvation front came amid growing criticism of Said's 2021 power grab, in which he dissolved the elected parliament, began ruling by decree, and took control of the judiciary, prompting accusations of a slow slide toward dictatorship, claims he denies. Insisting he is fighting a corrupt elite, demonstrators chanted slogans like "Said Dictator, your turn has come," calling for the release of Free Constitutional Party leader Abir Morsi, detained for 2 years, and others, including Rached Ghannouchi of the Ennahda party, while protesters and lawyers warned that basic freedoms were being crushed and that speaking out now risked imprisonment, even as Said's government maintains Tunisia is still a democracy. We move over to Congo. 3 American citizens imprisoned over a failed coup attempt in the Democratic Republic of Congo have been handed over to U.S. custody, officials confirmed, following high-level talks between the two governments amid intensifying negotiations over security cooperation and critical minerals. The Americans, among 37 defendants sentenced to death last year, had their sentences commuted and were transferred after U.S. President Donald Trump's senior Africa advisor, Masad Bolos, visited Kinshasa for discussions with President Felix Tshisekedi, as Congo pushes for minerals for security deal that could see U.S. troops or contractors train local forces and provide intelligence in exchange for access to Congo's vast reserves of minerals used in mobile phones and electric vehicles, which are currently dominated by Chinese firms. Staying with Congo, former Congolese President Joseph Kabila has announced his plans to return to the Democratic Republic of Congo, breaking his years-long silence amid what he describes as an out-of-control national crisis. In a statement to RFI on April 8th, Kabila cited the worsening security situation and the collapse of state institutions as urgent reasons for his comeback. Though no specific date was confirmed, sources close to Kabila say he may enter the country through its volatile eastern region in the coming days. Kabila, who led the country from 2001 to 2019, has been living in South Africa over the past year while working on a thesis focused on Congo's relationship with China. That academic project now appears to be on hold as he re-engages politically. His return comes as his party, the People's Party for Reconstruction and Democracy, has rejected President Felix Tshisekedi's recent call for national unity talks. Kabila's re-entry into Congolese politics could heighten existing tensions, especially amid ongoing armed conflict in the east, economic instability, and broader uncertainty over the country's political future ahead of upcoming elections. And in the last of our top stories, despite the global rise of right-wing populism, the African Union insists that discussions on reparations for slavery and colonialism must continue undeterred. Angela Afole-Odai, head of the AU's diaspora division, told Reuters that the current political climate should not intimidate Africans into silence, stressing that this is a crucial moment to press forward. Her remarks follow concerns from leaders like Cape Verde's President Jose Maria Neves, who warned that such conversations may deepen polarization in former colonial powers like Portugal, France, and Britain, while some Western leaders, including former U.S. President Donald Trump, well, not former, current Donald Trump, have dismissed the idea of reparations. African leaders are intensifying efforts. In February, they launched a renewed reparations campaign proposing measures ranging from financial compensation and formal apologies to international legal action. The AU aims to build a united front with the Caribbean and other diaspora communities using diplomatic channels, particularly AU-EU relations, to maintain pressure. Those have been our top stories on Africa. Good morning. After the break, we get the South Africa report from Arrie Hougaard, and we're going to be digging into the GNU, the Rand South African golfers heading to the Masters, Sundowns, Mamelodi Sundowns, and the best place to have a sundowner at the Cape. Stay with us.
Welcome to Namibia, where adventure meets tranquility. With Enjoy, you have access to a wide range of accommodations to suit every traveler's taste and budget. Experience the finest dining and hospitality Namibia has to offer. Booking your dream accommodation is just a few clicks away with Enjoy. Join thousands of happy travelers who have trusted Enjoy for their Namibian getaway. Your gateway to unforgettable Namibian adventures. Visit us today at enjoy.my.na.
It's time to talk to Arrie Hougaard as he brings us the news stories from Zanzi, South Africa. Good morning, Arrie. How are you?
Yes, a very good morning, Ashwin. Nice to talk to you and to everyone this morning.
It's good to have you on the show. Let's get straight into the current affairs. South Africans remain on the edge as the government of national unity appears increasingly fragile. Tensions have escalated between the African National Congress, ANC, and the Democratic Alliance, with failed negotiations over the 2025 budget deepening the divide. And I think in a related update, Arrie, the South African rand is on track to hit a record low against the United States dollar, raising concerns across financial markets. Of course, with Trump pausing the tariffs, we don't know what that will mean, but do take us into your current affairs.
Yes, thank you, Ashwin. Lots to talk about. We are more on the edge of our seats this morning as well. And the reason for that is that news broke this morning that the fortnightly cabinet meeting that's due to take place normally on Wednesdays did not take place yesterday. So that's not a good sign. So that makes everyone nervous. So that news filtered through early this morning. So the cabinet meeting is fortnightly that the president hosts. He said the reason was scheduling issues. So obviously it's well documented now that there's lots of tension between those three, especially in the middle. It's the DAs, John Steenhuisen of the DA, and then President Ramaphosa, and that's what it looks like. That's a puzzle basically that got together, the ANC and the DA in the government of national unity. So let's just briefly unpack that. The current status. Current status is that there is a legal process that the DA asked for in the Western Cape High Court to challenge the fiscal framework that was approved last week in voting. And then yesterday also the EFF joined the DA in the similar application to the Western Cape High Court. So there's two court cases against that. That's the political party in the middle of all of that, the Action SA, Mr. Trollope there on the right. What happened was last week, well documented as well, is they agreed with the ANC to vote for the fiscal framework, and they gave them enough vote to put the fiscal framework through. The problem here is that people, or as they call highly placed sources, indicate that the Action SA didn't realize what they're doing, into the sense that they asked for a postponement. But the reality at the moment is that as it stands, the VAT increase, which is the big discussion point, can be implemented on the 1st of May. The minister do have the right to amend the VAT increase. He can pick a date. So it can only be adjusted basically later in the year. It's a bill with lots of words. It's the Rates and Monetary Amount Amendment Bill. So that will only be adjusted later in the year. So then the Parliament can come into play and challenge the VAT increase. So it's all very confusing, but the status at the moment is they meant to talk about the budget still, if the VAT increase is going to be relevant up till the 6th of May. There's court cases. So in short, the ANC say that the DA is not a good partner in the government of national unity. There was talks of President Ramaphosa even looking at taking some of the ministers that is from the DA out of cabinet. The DA say if that happens, they walk out of the government of national unity. That would be a challenge. All of a sudden, the EFF say they prepared to talk, but the ANC must just know that if they think that the DA challenge them on issues, then the EFF will definitely challenge them on issues. In fact, the DA, the EFF, the MK, and the Freedom Front, four very extreme different parties in terms of policy, all on the same page in terms of they don't want the VAT increase. The ANC stands strong. At the moment, they still want the 0.5% VAT increase to continue. Where does it leave me and my fellow South Africans in the street at the moment? We know there's a budget, so it's not approved yet. So the VAT increase is a big component. It's become a political play ball, definitely. And hopefully it will be resolved soon. And the one thing that we want to see in South Africa, that is what the DA also pushed for, is better control of the budget. So it's one thing to get money in, the control of the municipalities and different components. How do you do that? So we're on edge, yes, Ashwin. It's not perfect. The rand did take a knock yesterday. It was just below the record highs or lows ever. The highest it went ever was 19 Rand 90. It was 1982 yesterday at one stage. And I think mostly helped by, you mentioned earlier, by President Trump freezing some of the tariffs for 90 days. That knocked it down to 19 Rand 32. But South Africa losing a lot of investments, unfortunately. That's the export component that you see there in the harbour. Investors taking money out of the developing countries like South Africa, putting it into the yen and into the euro, into the Swiss franc. So that's not good for the South African economy. Also, debt in South Africa is still a challenge. Briefly, 700 billion US dollars South African debt. That's 76% to the GDP in that percentage. So South African debt is a big challenge that needs to be addressed. So lots happening. We're on the edge of the seats. We just hope that the government of national unity will survive all of this and stay together and continue a basis where they can talk about things in Parliament.
All right, Arrie, we're going to dive straight into your sport news. All right, 3 South African golfers are set to tee off at the prestigious U.S. Masters in Augusta, Georgia, and that is starting today, if I'm not mistaken, Arrie. And on the football front, Mamelodi Sundowns have secured a spot in the semi-finals of the CAF Champions League.
Yes, Ashwin, I love the Masters tournament, one of my favorites. I was blessed lots of years ago. I was lucky to be there on one day. Amazing tournament. 3 South Africans in action there. One is a former champion, Charles Schwartzel, then Christian Besaidnout and Tristan Lawrence. They're going to have it up against them. It's a strong field. Lots of good players playing in that tournament. Obviously, Scotty Scheffler, world number 1, Rory McIlroy, and a few players from Liv Golf as well, Bryson DeChambeau, etc. That is going to challenge my sleep, but that is Charles Schwartzel, so he's flying the South African flag. Did well last week, actually. He came second in a live tournament in Miami, so he's got good form. He's had 3 top 10 finishes in 14 appearances, so he's not a bad golfer, in good form. Hopefully he can win that tournament. On the soccer field, there's also been almost like the government of national unity. The latest news from yesterday, the CAF Champions League. It is Pirates, Orlando Pirates, that's through, but there were lots of fighting on the field, physical fighting after the game. That was on the soccer field. It is Pirates that's through to the semi-final, but it was the Alkmaar Algiers club, rather, that wasn't happy after the final whistle. The other good news, Sundowns, the other strong soccer team from South Africa, they through to the semi-final as well. They will play Al Ahly. So it's an Egyptian affair. It is Sundowns that will play Al Ahly. There it is. Sundowns play Al Ahly in the semi-final, and then also it is confirmed now Pirates will play another Egyptian club, Pyramids it's called. Can't fault them for picking that name. So they playing 2 South African teams, 2 Egyptian teams. So that is all happening on the sport. A happy Sundowns team there in action.
All right, Arrie, we certainly wish them all the best. Now we move over to your entertainment news, or is it leisure? Because Cape Point Vineyards in Cape Town is a must-visit destination, offering superb wines, top-tier restaurants, and quite literally everything I'd like, Arrie, it seems.
Yes, Ashwin, the two of us have a long list growing that what we must do when you visit Cape Town. So that's definitely one of them. If you look at the photo of Cape Town, then you just behind Cape Town, that's where that is. It's a very scenic place. It is called the Cape Point Vineyards. You've got vine, you've got the vines, you've got the wine, obviously, you've got the amazing views, you've got the ocean on the back. What's happening tonight, every Thursday night, is there's a market. There's a night market with good food, good music, and good products to buy, a great vibe. And then the best thing about that is to wait for the sundown. The sun to set over the ocean there, have a sundowner with some of the world's best wines. Actually, Cape Point Vineyards, that's their product. They won the world's best Sauvignon Blanc with the Decanter Awards. So they've got a brilliant wine product as well. There's restaurants, there's a la carte, there's a sushi restaurant, there's a courtyard restaurant, lots to do. First, Vines was planted there in 1752, long time ago. And that's what you can do, go there and have a great time, great late afternoon. That's what it looks like, late afternoon, sun setting over the ocean, and have a great sundowner. One of the best places to visit in Cape Town for tourism. So we'll put that on the list, Ashwin, for when you visit Cape Town again. After doing all the other things around the waterfront, we'll nip around to the Cape Point Vineyards for a nice sundowner.
Indeed. All right, Arrie, thank you very much for bringing us the news stories from South Africa and yet again making me want to visit.
Big pleasure. You're always welcome. We know that that day will come and we'll have a good time.
All right, let's get into the economic news. Now, Ralph Skoma's operational readiness manager for Osino Resources and Shanjin International SD Gold outlines the latest developments at the new gold mine near Karibib, Namibia. He is joined by Lisa Gavanas from the Namibian Ministry of Labor, who will play a key role in helping secure the approximately 1,000 workers needed once the mine becomes operational, expected in no less than 2 years.
Good morning, ladies and gents. Welcome to the Twin Hills project for Osino Shanjin. We are really very excited about this project, and the Twin Hills project got its name from those two hills that you see in the background there. That's actually where the first gold was found, but then later on, with a lot of geological work, geological drilling in this area, we found a much bigger deposit right behind you. And if we turn around, you can see this area where the drill rigs are drilling currently. Very big ore body was found under that calcrete layer there. And as we speak, we're now going into the construction phase of this mine, which will take about 2 years to complete. So it's a very big project, or a big plant that has to be built here. And that plant, once it's completed, we'll actually be mining here for about 13 years as we stand now. And that may even be extended further, because as we go along, we're doing more exploration drilling to find more gold in the area. So very exciting times, and I think this is something that we as Namibians can be very proud of.
Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning, as we brought you the top stories from across the continent and beyond. In international news, we spoke about US President Donald Trump abruptly halting his aggressive tariff rollout, momentarily avoiding a global trade war. In Southern Africa, former DR Congo President Joseph Kabila announces a dramatic political return, while the US retrieves citizens once sentenced to death for a failed coup in Kinshasa. We also brought you the story of of protests in Tunisia and election tensions in Gabon, and calls from the African Union to keep reparations talks alive despite rising populism. And of course, Arrie Hougaard brought us the South Africa report. DSTV 285, GOTV 25, oneup2.com, and Network Media Hub is precisely where you can find us. From me, Ashwin Berry, and the Africa Good Morning team, Swera Jaganaka.